I am a 23-year-old Italian male living in a not-so-small town in southern Italy. No, it's not the most secure town in the world. In fact, we have a long history of microcriminality connected to the local mafia. But if you're smart, you keep yourself out of trouble. I need to explain my daily commute in context first to make things better to understand. I live in the old part of town, as here it's very common for every town to be built around its antique part. And after 1980 earthquakes destroyed a good part of it, so it's very affordable to live here. And some parts are beautiful and well kept. Where others aren't so, you find good families and great folks sharing spaces with more pesky dudes. Doesn't help that the town's castle has been converted into a prison. Yes, what the hell, Italy? Luckily, only for minor offenders now for the encounter itself this happened. In January, I just came back from uni. It's a 20-minute drive in the car. But with awful public transport, it takes anywhere from an hour to 2 hours to get home. I like to study in the library until it closes at 6:30, and I usually get home at 8 p.m. or later. I'm greeted by my dog Maya. She's a 1-year-old lab, and I take her for a walk around this part of town in the castle since it's her favorite spot to meet other street dogs. She was taking longer than usual to do her business, and it was freezing, and I was wearing clothes a little bit lighter than I should. Plus, it was snowing, which is super rare here. Maya saw snow and was very excited. It was at that point I decided to walk back home and grab a jacket to better take delight of the occasion, and on my walk home, I cut through and passed through this abandoned building under construction. It was just the pillarsome floor done, but a lot of kids used to play and climb around it. I just taken the shortcut. When I see this guy standing there, and his back facing me still as a rock, with his head facing up to the first floor of the abandoned building, wearing a dirty beanie, heavy winter jacket, and a tracksuit far too wide for his build. And there he was. At first I was frozen and spawned, but I wasn't an extraordinary encounter since there was a lot of weird people around here when I decided to pass on. But the first red flag was when I watched Maya, and she had her back fur raised and was looking at the guy dead. She never did this, and as we walked, she kept this odd behavior up. I realized I'd never seen him around these parts, and I knew he wasn't local. His face was creepy. Greasy hair, a 3-day beard, and he extended his hand to Maya stupidly. That calmed her down a bit. Maybe he was just mentally ill walking around. But anyway, there's a dormitory for mentally ill people not too far from here. But when he was trying to pet my dog, I hear something moving on the first floor. I thought it may have been a cat, but Maya would have already been jumping around if she had smelt it. I looked around and see this little girl of about 10 years old who had fear in her eyes, really desperate. And I'm not exaggerating, the detail, she had a familiar face though. Must have been one of the kids that played through this building. She must have seen me walking my dog around, because as soon as she recognized me or my dog, she caught eyes with me and whispered help with her lips. After this, I turned my head around and the creep is watching me now. I'd like to say he had the usual creepy smile, but he didn't. He was just wearing a very serious face with dead eyes. I don't know what to do. I'm 6'2" and kind of imposing, but I've never fought anyone, and I'm generally just a peaceful guy and a fraction of the second guy this looks up and says, "Calm down, sweetie. We need to get home before the food will get cold." Yeah, 10 out of 10. Totally believable, mate. "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" I ask. "I'm her uncle. I need to get her home to eat," he says with the most serious look on her face. I was thinking what to answer to use as an excuse to bring her down and get her to safety. And being the sarcastic type in this situation, I say, "That's strange, because I'm her uncle. This doesn't add up." At this point, the little girl has the brilliance to lean off and say, "Her uncle, can you help me get home? Mommy will be worried." Now, this guy didn't seem too threatened at the time, just kind of creepy. So I go under the building and take the little girl. And as I prepare to grab Maya, she first growls at him and then barks. Now she usually barks this really high-pitched bar, but this time with this guy, it was really low pitch and even scared me. To that, I turned around to see the guy with a hand behind his back reaching for something. Oh crap, I think I'm not a good fighter. And if this guy had a knife, I'm gonna win badly. He stops his reach motion as the bark is now continuous, and in the heat of the moment, the little girl leaned off and I grabbed her with one arm, the other arm keeping Maya at bay as a deterrent. And while she was descending, I asked her if she had a phone. No, I don't. I could tell she was on the brink of tears. As soon as she touched the ground, I unblocked my phone and gave it to her. She took the phone and immediately legged it. I should have been glad to, but my immediate thought was if she did this, all I have to stay on my phone, I would have been deadly pissed. After all, it wouldn't have been unusual, but I basically asked her to take it, so it wouldn't have been impossible to think. Anyway, the girl was gone. I turned around and this dude has a knife found, not a pocket knife, one of those huge kitchen knives that you use to cut bakery bread with. And me being so careless in the kitchen, I know how damn sharp those things can be. So I decided to run away too, but Maya decided, nope, I want to stand here barking at him. And I couldn't manage to pull her away as she's almost a 30-kilogram dog. But this was a grip too strong for even her. So we were there stalling, and this guy starts swinging the knife in the air. I went to run. If I leave my dog, I know she'll end up really bad. And even if I managed to pull her, he could run after us, and there we were, swinging the knife with empty eyes, and the dog barking and me crapping myself, not knowing what to do. And to make everything worse, my hands were freezing cold for not wearing gloves, and the grip leash was really starting to hurt. The thing that still surprised me in the situation is the fact that I am absolutely sure that people around the block could hear us. Not a single one decided to take a look anyway. After what seemed like a long time, but was probably around 2 minutes, I hear heavy footsteps from the street I came from. And a lot of people show up. Probably her dad and some relatives and friends with a baseball bat. This is not going to end well, I thought. As soon as the creepy guy saw those men, he threw the knife in my direction with terrible aim, but still, I had to move not to get hit, and started to run me trying to go into the street in my direction. I didn't even try to block him because I was still frozen by the knife under toe, but Maya bit his leg, ripped a piece of his tracksuit off. I still have it. She's so proud of it and is now one of her favorite toys. But the dude didn't even care and ran for his life with some of the girl's supposed relatives behind him. He eventually managed to get them off, but the girl's father came to me. I thought to thank me, but instead he screamed, "Who the hell was that?" while waving his bat menacingly. I look at the girl telling him to calm down, but he only got more pissed until the girl ran up to him telling him that I had helped her and gave me my phone back. After that, he calmed down and thanked me for helping his girl and offered me to grab a coffee at his house. I politely refused and went home, deciding that was enough adventure for one night, and I was still tired as hell from uni. And slept it off. The next morning, the police rang my doorbell to take my statement, as the guy managed to run off and showed me a book with all the signaled photos' IDs and stuff, but nothing came out of it. He probably wasn't even from a nearby town. You could tell from his dialect and accent it was a slight variation from town to town, and that was the end of it. I surely did not do the best I could have, but I'm glad I still got to help out the little girl. I don't know what would have happened to her if someone hadn't shown up. So creepy wannabe uncle, let's not meet. Hey guys, thanks so much for all the support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please feel free to do so. I can never forget the cold, callous nights in the ghost village of Norway, where I was abandoned by my friends, or so I thought they were. We had been on break for a while now, and there was something that they were all planning, and I was not in on it. I was just told that we were planning a trip to the ghost village. We packed all our stuff and headed to the village for the night, and all of our friends were there, but I had no idea what was planned. My relationship with my friends was a bit complicated. We weren't friends when we first started, and soon they wanted me to be with them. They were all quite older than me, and I was the one holding their stuff and doing all their homework. Everybody around me told me that I should not hang out with them, but they were the only ones in school who willingly hung out with me, so I didn't really have any other option. So I was friends with them. It was not like they ever bullied me. They just wanted me to do stuff for them instead, and even protected me from getting bullied, so I was thankful for whatever their friendship was worth. They planned something for the summer break. I didn't know what they were planning, and they told me later that they are planning to go to the ghost village nearby for camping night and wanted me to come with them. I was pretty excited to hear that, and it was the first time that anyone was bringing me along with them for a ride, and I took them up for the offer and decided to get things ready and did everything they told me to do and packed up the bag real good. I packed everything and decided to go with them, and in a hurry, I forgot telling my parents about it. I didn't really care for it because the village was really near and it wasn't one of those risky things in the forest, or so I thought it wasn't. It was the second day in the break, and we left early in the morning. It was still dark outside and it was freezing, even though it was summer. They decided to stop at the old house which belonged to one of them, and they told me that they will all set up camp in there, and I agreed and set up the things for them there. I had brought most of the food and drinks. They told me to put my bag in the basement. I did that and went back, and then they told me that they will start playing hide and seek in a while, and I was the one who was to seek first. The game started, and by the mid of it, I have found everyone, and I was found the last of them. He accused me that I cheated, and I was wondering how could that be possible. Now it was my time to hide, and I saw they were all planning something. And then they told me to hide, and then one of the friends and me hid in the basement while the rest someplace else. 10 minutes later, we realized someone was coming. So my friend said that he will change position, and as he did, he got up and left the basement. And on the way out, he locked the door from the outside. They all went ahead with the game, and I realized that they were still playing because I was able to hear all the commotion that was going on upstairs. So I knew that I was still not getting caught, and I was pretty excited about that. But then it had been a lot of hours, and I was feeling cold. I was calling out, "Guys, hey guys, I'm in here, open up." I started banging on the door, but there was nothing. I realized maybe they all have left. And then 10 hours become a day, and then days were increasing. I was cold and hungry. Thankfully, my bags were there so I did not starve. But then 3 days later, it must have been 3, because for me, it felt like forever. The police knocked down the door and found me all wrinkled holding my bag closer, and I was too cold to even react. Later, I was told that it was the boys. They left me there on purpose, and they weren't even going to tell. It was my father who confronted one of the guys, and it was the only reason that they were able to find me. I wonder, I might have decayed there if my father didn't confront one of them. That day and today, I don't really trust humans anymore. Too much work.
This is a true story that I witnessed when I was at my uncle's marriage. There, I saw something that was completely inhuman and scary. After that day, I never saw that creature again, but that time was really horrible, and I wish that I don't get to see him ever again in my life. My name is Douglas, and I am 19 years old. This incident happened to me about 5 years ago, and I was in my schooling age. I was a bright student in the whole class, and among the list of toppers. Back then, there was a system of winter vacations in our school, so every year we got to enjoy a complete month off from school, from mid-December to mid-January. As a kid, I loved that system very much, as I got some free time from my studies, and I could really focus on something that I loved, and that was my research about aliens. I had a collection of a whole bunch of books about aliens and their origin. I had read all of them, and now I was researching what resides outside of our planets. Believe me, from my research till that time, I was completely sure that there were some entities that were completely unknown to us, and I could prove that. From time to time, many countries have witnessed UFOs and strange creatures that were rare in their own species. They were all proofs that told us every time that aliens do exist, but we never believed any one of them and got busy in our daily life. Even NASA confirms the existence of aliens. But leave it all, and let us come to the point. One specific day, I was busy with my research and was working on my laptop in my room when I heard my dad's voice. He was calling me, so I turned off the system and went to him. I saw my uncle there. He was not the real brother of my father, but they had known each other since childhood and lived alone since then in the village, where we had a house that belonged to my grandparents, but now no one lived there. We used to go once a year to that cottage, but the rest of the year, it was completely empty. So, my uncle came to see us with an invitation card in his hand. He was getting married and had come to invite us to his marriage. Dad could never refuse him, so he agreed to come with the whole family. My mother cooked some breakfast for him, and later, he went after having a light breakfast with us, as he had to visit other relatives also to invite them to his marriage. When it came to visiting the village and our grandparents' house, I was always excited, since that place was far, and far away from this city full of commotion. The whole village was in the lap of high mountain ranges, and there was peace and fresh air all around. The whole village was enveloped by fresh air and purity. Also, the people there were very friendly, unlike the city, which was busy with their daily lives. The marriage ceremony was 5 days from then, and we didn't notice how those 4 days had passed. I was really excited to go there, so I was the one who got ready before my parents, followed by my father, and at last, my mother, as I could understand girls needing more time for getting ready, so I don't blame her. We all went to the car and hopped in for our long drive. I said this was a long drive because our village was about 4 hours away from the place where we were living currently. But I was not worried, because I had carried my laptop with me, and I started my research even there. I was totally lost in my research that I didn't notice how 4 hours had passed, and finally, we reached the village. My dad had called our caretaker in advance to clean our house before arriving, and he did so. When we reached there, he was waiting for us and came to us and carried our luggage. We went in and found that our house was in the complete same condition as it was when we left it a year ago. Every time the place looked the same, and this time was no different. We put our luggage there, got fresh, and went directly to my uncle's home, which was just a few steps away from ours. My uncle's father was at the door, receiving the guests, and he knew my father and mother very well. Although I don't know him, he knew me. We all went in and met my uncle. The celebration was at its peak, but I was not a guy who was up for such celebrations, so while everyone was busy talking to other people, I went to a corner and sat there. The marriage ceremony was full of people, and for the next 2 hours, Everything went well. I was getting bored there, though, so I decided to walk outside a little and get my mood fresh. I went to my mother and informed her that I was going to get fresh. She agreed, but asked me not to go into the woods as it was dark already. I was not planning to go, but since she reminded me now, I thought I have to go take a look through the woods, as in all these years, I had never been there before. I went outside, and instead of going toward my house, I chose to walk towards the woods. I was not planning to go deeper into the forest, but just a few steps in, it was already too dark. I was walking all the way. I could hear the chirping of insects and night birds as I was a little far from my uncle's house, which was full of noise and commotion. I was walking and enjoying the fresh air when I suddenly heard a voice that was like some animal, but not a dog or a cat. I stopped right there and started looking in the direction of the sound. It was dark, and I couldn't see anything properly, but judging from the appearance, I saw a huge-sized creature standing just in front of me, a few steps away. It was several feet long and was completed by humans. I was shocked to see it and couldn't move my feet out of fear. All of a sudden, he roared out loud, and my face became colorless after that. Now, I was confirming whether it was an animal or a creature, but I was in great danger. I somehow managed to move my feet and ran back to my parents without looking back and without stopping even for a single second. I went to my mother and told her everything, but instead of believing me, she scolded me as I didn't listen to her and went to the woods. She asked me to sit beside her and not to go anywhere. I couldn't believe that I told her about something that was inhuman and that she was busy enjoying the marriage ceremony. Whatever the reason was, I never got to know about that. Every time I asked her about that thing, she just asked me to shut up and never answered me. Till now, my question is without any answer, and I am continuing my research, as I was sure that whatever I saw that day was not something I had seen before, anywhere.